My name is Tamam Tracy Monker. I am a Newark resident. I'm also a retired school teacher. I retired from the Newark public school system in 2010. I also became a graduate student in 2010 at the International Institute for Restorative Practices, which is located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Now, it was through the course of my studies that I truly began to believe that restorative justice and practices has the potential to change mindsets and transform lives. Now, restorative justice is an international social movement that encompasses some of the best philosophical teachings of man and takes these teachings and applies them to resolving conflict and repairing harm. And this is by holding offenders accountable and giving victims a voice, and the community is a stakeholder in this process. Now, the concepts that I gravitated to almost immediately were those of accountability, remorse, forgiveness, restoration, and the use of peace circles, an indigenous native practice that joins us together and lets us feel our connectedness to each other as well as to the universe. Now, in this presentation, I cannot touch on all of the concepts that I was drawn to, but I would like to discuss briefly mindsets and accountability. Now, Newark, New Jersey is the largest city in New Jersey, population about 277,000. We have a rich art, music, historical culture. We are the third oldest city in the country. There are notable colleges that have campuses in our city. Yet, we have a high unemployment rate, a low median income, and we are grappling with the issue of crime and violence. John Waite, notable criminologist and also proponent of restorative justice, cites a number of reasons for criminal behavior, but among them are being at the bottom of the class structure, socioeconomic status, high unemployment, and then being a member of a racially oppressed minority. Now, Michelle Alexander, in her book, The New Jim Crow, which is an indictment of the current criminal justice system as well as an indictment of mass incarceration, states that 30 years ago, the population in prisons in this country was about 300,000. Today, the population of those incarcerated in the United States of America is 2.2 million people. Now, she attributes this explosion in prison population to the war on drugs. And we all know where that war, for the most part, was waged, and that was right in your inner cities. Consequently, 45% of those arrested for drugs or who are incarcerated at this time for drugs are Black. Yet we only comprise 17% of the general population of the United States. She states that 1 out of 3 Black males will more than likely go to jail. 1 out of 6 Hispanic males will more than likely go to jail. Now, these are the statistics that our young people in your inner cities across the country are growing up with. And many of these beautiful young people are beating the statistics. Yet many more are opting out of mainstream culture and joining the subculture, which of course we call it the streets. which means fast money, usually through the sale of drugs, crime, violence, gangs, guns. And along with this subculture comes a mental state that has to deal with, or a mindset. Give you an example of what I mean. One of my sons is a public defender in Essex County, and Newark is located in Essex County. And he has a number of cases that come across his desk. One of them, young man went to a party, socialized, hacked the ball, being friendly. On his way out, sees somebody that he had a beef with earlier in the week, takes out a gun, shoots, and kills the young man. Now, this is a mindset that does not think, that does not care. A mindset that seemingly is devoid of hope. There was another young man who wore a tattoo that stated, if this is life, death has to be better. Now, in the course of my studies, I was directed to a website called TED Talks. And I listened to a video by Dr. Daniel Rizal. Dr. Daniel Rizal is a neuroscientist. And he was discussing neurogenesis, which is the brain's capability now of making new brain cells. And he says this can happen in the older brain as well as it can happen in the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is that part in our brain that stores and processes emotional memories and also controls empathetic response. Now, empathy is our ability to put ourselves in somebody else's place and feel what they're feeling. Now, Dr. Rizal did a study of psychopaths at a prison in England. He wanted to see if there was any cause for their behavior. So he interviewed them, had their brains scanned, and what he found was that the amygdala in psychopaths is smaller than the amygdala in the normally empathetic person. Now, Dr. Rizal is a proponent of restorative justice, and he truly believes that through one of the most difficult dialogues, a restorative dialogue between an offender and a victim, but that through this dialogue, where the offender can come to realize that the victim is a human being with feelings, and hopefully the victim's story, and in terms about how the crime affected them or how the harm affected them, will stimulate the offender's mind, make them think, and consequently possibly stimulate the amygdala to the point where it might grow cells and lead to empathy, which leads to remorse. Now, I know you say psychopaths, psychopaths. But a little further study on my part, a little more research, I found out that 1% of the population in the United States are psychopaths. 20 to 30% of those incarcerated, both men and women, are psychopaths. Okay, so that leaves 70%. But now, if we take off some percentage points for sociopaths, for the mentally ill, for the emotionally, sociologically disturbed people, that still leaves the percentage that could conceivably benefit from restorative justice. Now, there is such a prison project in California at San Quentin. It's called the Insight Prison Project. And it's a restorative justice project that has been in operation since about 1998. Now, in 2007, four of their programs were studied, and the programs were victim offender education groups, violence prevention groups, the Brothers Keeper program, that's inmates watching out for each other who are part of the program, and then yoga, teaching a different way, another way of dealing with stress. And the study found that for those prisoners that participated in these restorative projects, the recidivism rate dropped. So yes, restorative justice can affect the recidivism rate, which recidivism is the going in and out of prison. Now let's discuss accountability and the current criminal justice system. Now there was another case that came across my son's desk. This young man got into a street argument, left, came back to the gun, and shot and killed the person he was arguing with. Now, he broke a law. He broke a law. And according to the state, he has to be punished. So now, this young man was offered a plea deal. Because in New Jersey, first degree homicide, you can get life. So he was offered the deal of, okay, you plead guilty to a lesser charge and you'll get 18 years. And then possibly end up serving 14 years in jail. Now, his family, they weren't that happy, but still, he was young, he'd be out in his mid-30s. The victim's family was devastated. And in their victim impact statement, the mother stated that the street violence is stealing the souls of the people. Now, this young man will go off to prison. He's being punished. But will he ever realize or take responsibility for, first of all, the fact that he took another life? Secondly, the grief and harm he caused the victim's family. And what about the harm to his own family? What about the harm to the community? Now, if there were a restorative justice program in the prison, then yes, and he opted to become a part of it, eventually he might accept and take accountability for what he did. But currently in our criminal justice system and in our prisons, this option is not available for prisoners. Now, I truly believe that restorative justice and practices can change mindsets and transform lives. The United States of America, our states, our cities really need to look at restorative justice and the potential it has to make a difference in our lives. Within our schools, restorative practices can be used as preventative measures, teaching young people an alternative way of handling conflict. In our juvenile justice system, in our prison system, in our criminal justice department, restorative justice and practices can be used to help change mindsets and really help people transform their lives. Thank you.